Our candidate Q&A session. Before we get started, I will just go over a few housekeeping pieces. Just so you all know, this session is being recorded and we will share it online once it's been completed. Participants have automatically been muted and your cameras are off, but you can submit questions through the Q&A feature. Election office staff will be able to see your name when you submit a question, but other participants will not. That will all be anonymous. If you would like to access closed captions, you may do so by clicking the More button at the top of your screen, the three little dots at the top of your screen, selecting Language and Speech, and then clicking Show Live Captions. And please ensure questions you ask in the Q&A are related to the upcoming by-election. And we'll do our best to answer all relevant questions that come in. And as I said earlier, we'll post this session online once it's complete. Now I will pass it over to our Chief Election Officer, Katrina Lechkovich.
Thank you, Natty, and welcome everyone. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting today on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, who have stewarded these lands since time immemorial. The by-election will take place on Saturday, April 5th, 2025, when voters will elect 2 new members of Vancouver City Council. This is a critical opportunity for candidates to step forward and shape the future of our city. Here are some key dates to keep in mind. Nomination period starts February 18th at 9 a.m. and runs to February 28th at 4 p.m. This is when you must submit your nomination forms to officially register as a candidate. Candidates are encouraged to set up an appointment with the election office to submit their nomination documents. Appointments are available for booking now by calling the election office at 604-829-2010. We will hold a random ballot draw on March 7th. This will determine the order of names on the ballot. The campaign period runs from March 8th to April 5th. This is your time to engage with voters, share your vision, and participate in the democratic process. You'll find everything you need to know about becoming a candidate on our website at vancouver.ca/vote under Becoming a Candidate. That's where you would have signed up for this session. Please review this resource carefully for step-by-step guidance on nomination papers, campaign rules, and other important details. You may provide candidate information, such as website or social media channels, phone, or email that will be posted publicly on the city's website. The deadline to provide this information is 4 p.m. on February 28th. So please ensure you submit it on time. The candidate information will be posted to the city's website on February 28th. Joining me today to answer questions is Deputy Chief Election Officer Tamara Wong. We also have Carmen Kerman and Lisa McCarran, who will be providing ASL interpretation. With that, I'll hand it back to our moderator to begin the Q&A session.
Thanks, Katrina. And I realized I didn't introduce myself earlier. My name's Natty Schmid, and I'm the Manager of Communications and Outreach for the election. And I'd like to thank everybody for submitting questions in advance, and we'll kick it off with a question for Katrina. Katrina, what are the requirements to run as a candidate?
Thanks, Natty. To run for Vancouver City Council in the 2025 by-election, you must be 18 years or older on April 5th, 2025, be a Canadian citizen, have been a resident of British Columbia for at least 6 months prior to the date you seek nomination, and not be disqualified under the Vancouver Charter or any other enactment. You must also submit your completed nomination package with a $100 deposit and at least 25 qualified nominators during the nomination period, which is February 18th to 28th. We encourage you to seek additional qualified nominators in case some of the ones you have on your list are not valid. To be elected to City Council, you must receive more votes than the other candidates running.
Great. Thanks, Katrina. Next question. What is the time commitment involved with being a member of City Council?
Thanks, Natty. Serving on Vancouver City Council is a demanding and time-intensive role. It requires a commitment of at least 30 to 55 hours per week. Councillors attend bi-weekly council and standing committee meetings, which typically run from 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., but can sometimes extend to 10 p.m. or later. Council members also participate in at least 4 public hearings per month, which frequently go late into the evening, and also other meeting types. Beyond meetings, councillors engage in briefings, workshops, committee work, represent the city in external agencies such as Metro Vancouver, and attend community events to connect with residents. They also dedicate time to responding to public and media inquiries and ensure transparency and accountability city process.
Great, thank you. Next question. And this is in relation to city staff. Would I need to resign from my current City of Vancouver position?
Okay. City employees must take a leave of absence, which would start no later than February 17th, 2025, which is the day before nominations open. If elected, a city employee must resign from their city position before being sworn into office. City staff can find more information about this on our internal website Currents or by reviewing the city's code of conduct in section 5.
Thank you, Katrina. Now we'll have some questions for Tamara. Tamara, can you please touch on the rules concerning campaigning before the end of the nomination period? Are candidates permitted or prospective candidates permitted to present themselves as candidates to the public?
Thank you, Natty, for the question. Yes, you can present yourself as a prospective candidate, but you cannot campaign before March 8th, 2025. That is the date when the official campaign period begins. Campaigning before this date could lead to violations under the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act. You can, however, announce your intention to run and prepare your campaign team in advance.
Great. Thanks, Tamara. Next question. What are some common mistakes that new candidates make during the election period, and how can they be avoided?
That's a great question. One of the first common things we see is one, missing a nomination deadline. So we encourage all candidates to submit their forms early to avoid disqualification. Appointment bookings have opened already, which opened on February 3rd, and we recommend booking an appointment time with the election office by calling 604-829-2010 to submit the nomination documents. Another common mistake we see is failing to track campaign expenses. Make sure you keep meticulous financial records to comply with Election BC rules. Another one is ignoring compliance rules. So make sure as a candidate, you understand campaign signage rules, election advertising, and disclosure requirements. And a lot of that can be found with Elections BC.
Great. Thank you so much. And you just mentioned financing. Can you review campaign financing? What are the rules around funding your campaign, and how can folks ensure that they're following those rules?
Thanks for the question. So Elections BC is responsible for administering campaign financing and sets the spending limits for all candidates to ensure fairness in the election process. For this by-election, the candidate expense limit is $120,491.15, and this applies to all advertising, events, materials, and campaign-related expenses incurred between March 8th to February 5th, 2025. Candidates must ensure they file their campaign financing disclosure statements with Elections BC by Friday, July 4th. This details all the contributions, expenditures, and financial activities. The late filing deadline is August 5th and will require a $500 fee to Elections BC. To ensure you are following the rules, make sure you read the guides posted by Elections BC, which are the Guide to Local Elections Campaign Financing in BC, and familiarize yourself with the Local Campaign Elections Financing Act.
Great. Thanks, Tamara. Katrina, back over to you. Is the process for running as an independent different than as a member of a party, and how so?
Okay, thanks, Nay. So the main differences are that the electoral organization endorsement. So party affiliated candidates need to submit additional documentation, including endorsement forms from the party. The other main difference is resources and support. Parties often provide campaign infrastructure and support, while independent candidates must build their own teams and resources. The core nomination process remains the same for both. Registrations for electoral organizations must go through Elections BC. If you are affiliated with an electoral organization, it will be named on the ballot.
Great, thank you. And how will the city promote candidates as the next question?
Thanks, Natty. The City of Vancouver does not promote candidates. This is so that the city maintains a neutral position in administering the election. To simplify the process for voters to access candidate information, the city will maintain a candidate information page on its website, listing all officially nominated candidates, their political affiliation if it's applicable, and links to their campaign website or social media. The deadline to submit this information, as previously mentioned, is February 28th. The city will not edit your answers. This includes incorrect spelling, grammar, or other obvious errors, and candidates are responsible for their own outreach, advertising, and voter engagement.
Great, thanks, Katrina. And I just want to point participants to the Q&A question up at the top of your bar there in between the chat and the people. There is a Q&A function. If you click on that, any questions you have for us, you can submit through there and we'll do our best to get to them. Thank you so much. And moving on to the next question, again for Katrina. How do we get funds for executing projects at scale? And I'm assuming this is once you're a council member.
Okay, thanks, Shani. So the City of Vancouver budget is primarily funded through property taxes, utility fees, and various programs and development fees and licensing fees, with additional funding from other levels of government, senior levels of government, grants, revenue generating initiatives such as on-street parking, street furniture, and sponsorships. The budget for 2025, the operating budget is $2.34 billion, and the approved 2025 capital budget is $880 million, supporting delivery of initiatives outlined in the 2023 to 2026 capital plan, which provides a total of $3.8 billion in infrastructure investments to improve Vancouver's livability, sustainability, and resilience.
Great. Thank you very much, Katrina. Okay, my next question here is for Tamara, and the question is, I don't live in the City of Vancouver region, but in the Greater Vancouver region. Can I still run for the seat?
Yes, you can still run for the seat. Under the Vancouver Charter, we are required to provide the municipality in which the candidate resides on our statutory advertisement. Please note that the ballot does not have the residency information, as the Vancouver Charter is very specific about what is to be included on the ballot. When the official candidate list is announced, it will say on our advertisement that all of the candidates will reside in Vancouver unless otherwise stated. For example, it may have the municipality of Burnaby beside a candidate's name. That is an example of that scenario there.
Great, thank you so much. And now Next question for you, Tamara. Can I have both my name, can I have both my name in English and another language on the ballot?
If your usual name is not the same as your full name and you would like to have your usual name on the ballot, you can print that usual name on the appropriate line in the nomination papers. Please note that an elector, another nominee, or the chief election officer can challenge your nomination in provincial court on the basis that the usual name you have entered on your nomination papers is not in fact your usual name. If the challenge succeeds, you will not be entitled to have the usual name indicated on your nomination documents, and you will not be able to use that on the ballot, and you may be ordered to pay the costs of the party that successfully challenged your nomination.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And next one for you, Tamara. How will the order of names on the ballot be determined?
Thanks, Natty. A random ballot draw will be conducted by the Chief Election Officer at 5 p.m. on March 7, 2025, in the Council Chamber at City Hall. Candidates' names will not be listed alphabetically on the ballot, but in an order drawn at random and will include numbers in front of the candidates' names, which is in compliance with the city's election bylaw and the Vancouver Charter. Candidates are welcome to attend, but is not required, as the event will also be live streamed and the link will be posted on our website.
Thanks, Tamara. And while we're on the topic of names, we had this question come in. In the nomination documents, nominators form, is middle name mandatory or just first and last names?
Middle name is not mandatory.
Great. Thank you so much. Now back to you, Katrina. Is there a fee to file my nomination papers?
Thanks, Natty. Yes, there is a $100 nomination deposit when submitting your nomination papers. This fee is refundable, so it's just a deposit if the candidate files their campaign financing disclosure statement on time with Elections BC. This is in accordance with the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act.
Great, thank you. And next question, can I hold campaign events on city property or at city facilities?
No, candidates cannot use city-owned properties, including community centers, libraries, and parks for campaign events. However, candidates may rent private venues or organize events in public spaces that do not require city approval, such as sidewalks or privately owned venues.
Wonderful, thank you. And while we're on the topic of campaigning, there was some questions that came in around what actually constitutes campaigning. Could one canvass for support and sign up potential supporters ahead of the official campaign launch? And that will, I'll ask, sorry, Katrina, I'll direct that one to you. Oh, I can read that one again. What actually constitutes campaigning is the root of the question. Could one canvass for support and sign up potential supporters ahead of the official campaign launch? So there's just some questions around what activities are allowed before the actual campaigning period begins.
Okay, thanks, Natty. Sorry, I didn't hear that one. It's recommended that the candidates seek information from Elections BC for that question.
Okay, great. Okay, and next question again for you, Katrina. Can I continue my full-time job along with council duty?
Thanks, Natty. So serving on Vancouver City Council is a significant time commitment. Often requires, as I've mentioned previously, 30 or up to 55 or more hours per week of time. This includes attending biweekly council and standing committee meetings, public hearings, committee work, briefings, workshops, and representing the city at community events and external agencies. And we suggest candidates consider their own situation and assess if they can continue with other work.
Great, thank you. And I will pass this one over to Tamara as our next question. What experience or education is required to run for City Council?
There is no formal education or professional experience required to run for City Council. However, successful candidates often have experience in leadership, governance, public policy, community engagement, or business management. Uh, Candidates often have strong communication skills and an understanding of municipal issues, are also some other assets to have.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Tamara, I'll pass this one over to you again. When can I start advertising my candidacy using a personal website?
There are no restrictions when you can create a personal website, but any campaign-related expenses, including website costs, must be tracked and reported once the campaign period begins on March 8th, 2025. Again, candidates should review Election BC's Local Elections Campaign Financing Act to ensure they're in compliance with that.
Great. Thank you so much. And another one for you, Tamara. What happens after I'm elected?
Thanks for the question. If you are elected, new councillors receive typically an orientation session covering governance, city operations, and procedural rules. They will have access to office space, technology, and administrative resources to assist in their transition to public office. Typically, there are orientations and other briefings with city departments depending on topics of interest and topics that council will consider at upcoming meetings. City staff are also fully committed to supporting members of council and fulfilling their duties as elected officials. Additionally, new councillors are also expected to attend meetings, to represent their constituents, and participate in policy discussions that shape the future of Vancouver.
Great. Thank you so much. And we had one come in through the Q&A that I will direct towards Katrina. And that is, can you do door knocking and voter ID before March 8th?
Thanks, Natty. No, so the campaign period is between March 8th and April 5th. So no, you could not do that before March 8th.
Great. Thank you so much. And Katrina, if you don't mind, I'll also ask this question to you. What are the key deadlines for candidates?
Thanks, Natty. So candidates must submit their nomination papers between February 18th and February 28th. To have their name, political affiliation, and website social media links included on the city's website, they must submit this information by February 28th at 4 p.m. Missing this deadline does not affect candidacy in terms of the candidate information, but it will not be listed on the city's website.
Great. Thank you so much. And a question for Tamara. In the nominator forms, there are different lines if nominating as a resident elector and if nominating as a non-resident property elector. Can this be reviewed in advance with an appointment?
Yes, it can be reviewed in advance during an appointment. So we recommend booking your appointment as soon as possible. We can review the papers with you in advance to make sure that everything is in order. And if there are any revisions needed, you are welcome to take your papers back and then submit it to us at a later date, just before the deadline of February 28th at 4 p.m.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tamara. And I just want to encourage folks, if they have any other questions, please put them in the Q&A now, as we are coming to the end of the questions. And if there's anything that we haven't gotten to that you are not able to find on our vancouver.ca/vote page or through Elections BC, you can always email us at electioncandidates@vancouver.ca. And I'm just not seeing any other questions come in through the Q&A here. Oh, here's one. And I'll put this one to Tamara. When will the voter list be available and in what form?
The voters list will be in the form. Candidates can request it either electronically through a secured site, or we can provide hard copy at a cost, and it will be available as of February 18th. There is a sheet in the nomination papers that candidates can fill out to request a copy of the voters list. Oh, sorry, correction. I'm just looking at my notes. It's February 18th. The voters list will be available for inspection, but for candidates, the copy will be available March 11th.
Okay, thank you so much, Tamara. Not seeing any other questions come in through our Q&A. We can wrap this up and give everybody 30 minutes back on this Tuesday evening. Thank you all for joining us today and for your thoughtful questions. We really appreciate the time you've taken to learn about the by-election. As you move forward, remember that all the key dates, nomination details, and campaign guidelines can be found at vancouver.ca/vote under Become a Candidate. As I said, if we didn't get your question today, we encourage you to review the documents on our webpage. And if you can't find the information there, please reach out to electioncandidates@vancouver.ca. We'll be posting a recording of this session online in the coming days. And we would also love if you could take a few minutes to answer a very short survey that I will push forward in the Q&A right now. We would love your feedback on if you found this session helpful. Okay, and on behalf of our team, we wish you the best. Oh, sorry, it looks like one more question has come in. Are you able to add a financial officer after you have submitted your paperwork? And can I direct that at Tamara?
If you submitted your papers before the deadline, and then you wish to do an amendment and add a financial officer, you can do so before the deadline of February 28th. We need to ensure that it is submitted before that deadline, as that information is sent to Elections BC.
Great. Thanks, Tamara. And I'm just going to make sure that the survey came through in the chat or the Q&A, sorry. Okay, there we go. It should have gone through. Thank you all so much for your time this evening. We really, really appreciate it. And we wish you all the best in your next steps in your candidacy. Have a lovely evening.